We are live, having some technical difficulties here. Good evening, good evening. Good evening. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast, the Us Review. It's great to have all of you here who's checking in with me as I dive into a very hot and trendy topic that we're going to talk about tonight. It's very significant, so I want you to pay close attention. Take some notes if you can. And if you know someone that's experiencing what I'm going to talk about, please pass this information along, and you can even have them watch the actual episode. And tonight, basically what I'm going to talk about is what are the signs that you may be in a mentally abusive relationship. Let's spend basically the next 15 minutes or so exploring ways to identify the possibility that you may very well be involved in one. And basically, you can, I'll give out some statistics. I will give out a number at the end that you can call, and I'll give out just a ton of information for you to be able to identify this. I have researched and I read up on a lot of things surrounding this topic, and it is a widespread epidemic throughout the U.S., let alone across, the world and, other countries or whatever. We have a significant problem. So I felt that this was a great topic to kind of talk about, research, and be able to give you some information on it. With that said, I am your host, Dr. Carla Davis Luster, also known as Ask Carla. Here is where I discuss controversial relationship topics, highlighting the male and the female perspectives when necessary. For legal purposes and to add a disclaimer, I do want to make clear that any of these topics that I do talk about are merely an opinion, just so that you know it. Please note that the information discussed on the Us Review is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional, financial, or legal advice. A lot of people say, you are a doctor, whatever. I am. I have a doctorate in philosophy, and I have a love for talking about just relationship issues and the controversial topics that people tend to shun, don't want to talk about, brush under the carpet. I'm like, but a relationship, is not all just about, just a easy topic to talk about. Let's talk about some of the things that people may very well be thinking, people may not have thought of, and let's bring it up just to make sure that that you are aware. So once again, if you require such of advice, I do recommend consulting a licensed advisor in the area of concern that you may be having. Needless to say, once again, I am Dr. Carla Davis Luster. I'm your host, and tonight is the Us Review, and we're going to be talking about what are the signs that you may very well be in an abusive relationship. So let's get started. You first have to understand what is mental abuse before you can take any steps towards healing and empowerment. You have to understand what it is. So with that being said, let me break it down. Mental abuse is just basically a form of manipulation or control that, a perpetrator will inflict psychologically. They'll inflict psychological trauma on another person. This can be a male or female. Last week I talked to the ladies. This week, this is for everyone, male and female, because it isn't necessarily written that, or necessarily a fact that it's just men that possibly could be the perpetrators. Women, you have your issues and of the sort as well. It often aims, the perpetrator often aims behaviors that undermine one's self-esteem. They undermine one's self-esteem. They can undermine your independence, and you take away your dignity with things that they could be doing that are mentally abusive. Unlike physical abuse, basically, which is the obvious. You kind of know when someone's being physically abused because they have like marks and bruises and everything all over them. However, mental abuse can be very subtle, insidious, making it harder to identify because there are no signs, there are no like marks that you can find. You have to, with that, physically be there and experience or see someone inflicting this type of behavior, catch it when it's happening. Usually, ones that are inflicting it they basically come across as they are an upstanding citizen, and that basically they are, the shit, if I should say, and they couldn't possibly, in certain people's minds, because of what they do and who they are and what they have, couldn't possibly be a person that's inflicting this on someone else. I'll just throw two names out there, Puff Daddy or Epstein. I once again, I don't have a hell or a heaven to put them in, and I'm not a judge. Needless to say, they've been all in the news, and you guys know the situations and talking about that. I'm just using that as an example, as typically a perpetrator may not come across as a person that obviously is doing this. Basically, when they're doing this, they know how to they know how to act in public. They know how to behave in public so that no one else picks up on it, or they're very subtle with it. So what are signs that you are in a mentally abusive relationship? I want to say that there are a numerous amount of ways that your relationship could be unhealthy. Once again, the physical abuse, although it is obvious, because you obviously know if somebody got a black eye that they're being physically abused, and that's not something to laugh at, but I'm saying, physical is obvious. Mentally and verbally abuse is just as bad, because you're messing with someone's psyche, you're messing, it's just unhealthy. So how do you know? Let's get into that. I'm going to go over several key points and several things and signs to look for. The first one that I'll talk about is the constant criticism and blame. Your partner is always criticizing your actions, your decisions, your feelings, blaming you for all of the relationship problems, never ever taking accountability or responsibility for what they do or have done to cause some of these issues in the relationship. It's always you. So it's constant criticism, constant just blaming you for everything. That's working with your mental. Like I continue to say, I talk about a lot of subjects, and I tend to take subjects from my novels, like passages from my novels, and then, talk about certain things surrounding that. Needless to say, in those conversations and episodes, I always say, everyone brings something to the table, being it good, bad, or indifferent, silence, loud, whatever. You're bringing something to the table, and this is something that is, a serious thing. Mental abuse. Number two. What is number two? Manipulation and gaslighting. For a long time, I really didn't know what gaslighting actually meant. I would hear that word all the time, gaslighting, and, people, we come up with these words and terminologies, and it's the end thing or whatever, or a lot of people are talking about it. So I said, you know what, I need to find out what exactly is gaslighting. So for those of you who don't know, what is gaslighting? Gaslighting is when someone makes you question your reality and your beliefs, make you question what you say, or what you think that you saw, no, that wasn't right. Your partner consistently dismisses your feelings in the situation and constantly says that you are wrong and that you are crazy. You're just making this up or whatever, and just trying to make you think, or trying to get you dismissing your beliefs and what you bring to the table. That's a huge red flag. Someone really just trying to make you think something different, throw you off. That's not cool. That's not cool. You see that in a lot of relationships when people are, one or the other partner is doing something, or they're arguing over something that possibly the one did that shouldn't have been doing. Oh, that wasn't me. I didn't do that. You just making, trying to, that's gaslighting. Okay. Number three, let's talk about isolation. Abusers basically typically like to separate their victims, and I'm going to call you a victim if you're in that type of relationship, from friends and family and loved ones and people that support you. They may get jealous, your partner may get jealous or angry when you spend time with people that is part of your network, part of your friend group, your family group. They're getting mad. They want to keep you all to, keep you isolated And, because typically they are afraid of what someone is going to point out to you, how they're going to enlighten you and make you aware of, hey, if he's doing this or she's doing this, that's not cool. They don't want you to have those conversations to enlighten you or whatever, to make you aware of what's going on with your loved one. Sometimes this is basically, once again, a tactic to minimize your support network, first of all. And sometimes if they happen to be, I talk about prominent people, prominent figure, they may even go as far as, using their influence to try to put out negative, untruthful outcomes about you, because maybe they don't want you to see you succeed. They're so jealous and want to keep you to themselves and keep you bogged down and up under them. They could do that. Jealousy. I could go on and on and on about that, but that is number 3. Number 4, control and domination. This can appear through your partner if they are micromanaging your decisions and your activities, things that you do, how you dress. They're always negative about who your friends are, why you're going out with them. They're not cool. They are bad influence, etc. Just minimizing all of the things that you do and all of the people that are around you to break up your support network. Mental abuse. If you, basically, if you sat back, I've seen this before. If you sat back and just took a look at who they surround themselves with, they don't get rid of their friends, but you have to get rid of yours, or, they're trying to get rid of yours, or friends and family and your network. If you took a look at their friends and their messy family members, if I should say so, it would leave much to be desired, and sometimes we are so ingrained in a situation, or it could be that you're so in love and you want this to work out so badly, you're not recognizing that you are going through something that you should not be in this relationship. Number 5, they can instill fear. Mental abusers can instill fear and anxiety with people. The victim, as I should say, typically is afraid of their actions. You walking around on eggshells to avoid conflict because, why would you do that? Maybe they control a part of your livelihood. Maybe you have no other means and they are the one providing. It takes me back to a Tyler Perry movie, and hopefully Tyler Perry is watching this. And, I always say, pick up my novels, make a movie. Needless to say, they control your livelihood. This is a significant sign that you walk on eggshells because you don't want to make them mad, because they may cut this off or cut that off. It's a serious situation. And I'm going to talk about one more. Let's talk about the emotional withholding and silent treatment. How many of you are in relationships, and when you have a disagreement or an issue arises, sometimes I've heard people say that they walk around and don't talk to each other for weeks at a time. That's serious. Or your perpetrator, won't talk to you or whatever, give you the silent treatment. And here's one. Abusers often use the silent treatment as a way to control or punish. This is a way to punish you. If your partner uses affection, I hear this from when I've surveyed men saying that when the female, and this is not, once again, it's not 100%, it can go either way, but I'm just using this as an example, uses affection as a weapon by giving or withholding it based on the behavior that if you're good and I'm not mad at you, I'm giving. And if I am mad at you, I'm withholding, So this is a form of mental abuse as well. That is another sign, people. That is another sign. Once again, in a nutshell, recognizing, these behaviors is very important. If nothing else, consistently living this way is undoubtedly unhealthy and can cause a numerous amount of health issues such as anxiety, depression. They can cause mental health issues, chronic stress if you're a person that stresses out. And stress comes across and comes out in many different forms. I have a family member that stress comes when she's stressed out, it comes through her hair, her hair falls out. I've seen people when they're stressed, their face break out. I've heard of people itching. I mean, it's just a whole lot of things. And I mean, life is hard enough. You don't need anything helping you to be unhealthy. So chronic stress, PTSD is one. Basically, it can make you feel like a deep sense of helplessness and worthlessness. And I talked about that last week when I talked about women. Why do we undervalue ourselves? Feeling we feel helpless and work like we're like not worthy of certain things. And so that's a whole nother thing. It is posted, so you can go back and if you are on here, you can go back and listen to that or whatever. And I was talking mainly to women, but the conversations that I have can go for men or women. It's not exclusive, but I go back and watch it. Here's one. Basically understanding what's going on, first of all, is the first step to getting help. Okay, I'm sitting here and a train is going by, so I do apologize if you heard that noise. The first step is understanding what's happening. And once you understand it, it's time to take the steps to get help. The first step, once again, is acknowledging the problem. After acknowledging the problem, then it's time to seek help. It really is. This is not a light conversation or a light thing. This is something that's really serious. Like I talked about, physical abuse is obvious, but the mental abuse is just as serious and just as bad, mental or verbal abuse. What are some statistics? I told you I always like to give you some statistics on what's going on with this particular topic. People that's in some form of a mental abusive relationship, it says some of the things that I read. Across the U.S., it was reported that 48% of women and 49% of men will experience mental abuse in their relationships within their lifetime. Meaning that somewhere in one of the relationships that you are in or have been in or whatever, it's saying somewhere in your lifetime you will experience some form of abuse. That's unfortunate. Here's another one. 40% of women and 32% of men experience screaming and name calling in the relationship. You guys get into a quarrel or get into a disagreement and you're calling each other names, your mama, all this. That is not a healthy practice in a relationship. You should be able to find a way to communicate effectively, just talking to each other, the name calling and stuff like that, because words are like a two-edged sword, cutting both ways or whatever. And people tend to remember what you say. They remember what you say and, can't take it to heart. And some people hold grudges. So name calling and all that's not necessary, to get your point across. If you guys can't talk effectively like that, maybe counseling is, you go to counseling for learning how to communicate effectively. And counseling is great for a lot of things. Let's move on with the statistics. 41% of women and 43% of men experience some form of isolation. We talked about isolation. That is a form of mental abuse, separating you from your network, just so that you don't have people to enlighten you or whatever, just separating you. Coercive control is one. And threats, threatening you. You better not do this, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Threats are a form of mental abuse. Oh, okay, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do this. Okay. That's not cool. That is not cool at all. Mental or emotional abuse is a very strong factor. It's been said a very strong factor in PTSD. So people being diagnosed with PTSD, as doctors have looked at it, a great form, some of the contributing factors to being diagnosed with the PTSD is some form of emotional whatever abuse that has happened in a person's life, or some form of mental things have happened in their life. Here's another one. 1 in 3 teens, young adults, experience physical, mental, and verbal abuse. I probably need to stop watching Lifetime, because how many movies do I see with teens dating someone, they come up missing, they come up dead. They've gone through, they're in an abusive relationship, they're scared to tell their parents, the people around them, the friends are seeing it. So it's a serious thing. It's not just on TV, it is a reality. These are statistics that have actually been, people have been surveyed, research things have happened, studies have been done, conducted, and this is something that is actually happening. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have experienced severe physical violence. You know, we're talking about the mental thing tonight. However, physical violence is something that, you know, just happens. And if you're being mentally abused, it's said, you know, and I think I'm going to come up on, I'm going to talk about a statistic where mental abuse is basically, if the mental is happening, the physical is happening as well. Financial abuse occurs in 99% of domestic violence cases, according to the National Network to End Domestic Violence. So if you're in a domestic violence type of a situation, they're saying 99% of the financial abuse is happening. And that could swing a lot of ways, meaning that maybe the person that is the perpetrator cuts off, they are the sole provider, and they cut off the finances. You know, they give you when they feel that you're being good, and they take away when you're not. And there's a lot of other factors that can go into that, but that's just one example that I'm giving. 95% of perpetrators who actually commit mental abuse also commit physical abuse, and I just said that. You know, I'm kind of reading some of the statistics off to you that I actually researched and found. 90%. Here's one. 90% of practitioners agree that psychological abuse are often interspersed with kindness to create confusion. That goes all the way back to, I mentioned the Diddy, I mentioned the Epstein, and upstanding people, and people, you know, with a name, and you know, in the public eye, and they're doing this and they're doing that. Basically what this is saying, practitioners found over 90-something%. Those people, they hide it with kindness to create confusion, so that if someone, the victim, you know, oh, well, he or she is doing this, you know, people are saying, oh, they couldn't possibly be doing that. This person does this, they does that, they do this, they do that. Needless to say, think about it, okay? Just think about it. So, in my conclusion, what am I saying? We must break the stigma surrounding mental abuse and encourage conversations around recognizing and addressing it. When you recognize it, you have to address it, and you gotta seek help. Remember that everyone deserves to be in a relationship that is grounded in mutual respect, that is grounded in love, and that is grounded in support. If you are witnessing or experiencing mental abuse, just know that help is available and that you are not alone, okay? I'm going to give out a number that I found. I want to say that this is free. Namey Shy. The number is, if you are experiencing it or you know someone that is experiencing it, you can give them this phone number. It's 833-626-4244. Once again, it's 833-626-4244, and it's Namey Shy, the Namey Shy helpline that can give you some counseling, and it's just a helpline for that. So once again, thank you for watching. It's always so much fun. I love doing this and talking about controversial relationship topics or just controversial topics. Once again, I am your host, Dr. Carla Davis Luster. You can follow me across any of the platforms at Ask Carla. You can purchase my novels, which are very entertaining. Once again, Tyler Perry, if you are listening, like I've been saying for 3 or 4 years, trying to get in contact with him. You can purchase my novels at Amazon, Walmart.com, BarnesandNoble.com, AskCarlaDL.com. That is my website. You can go there. I have some of my books are on there, my t-shirts are on there, and you can just learn a little bit about me if you want to know more about me. And also my books are at the Volumes Bookstore at 900 North Michigan Avenue on the 5th floor. So Until next time, I will come out with another topic that is, very, very juicy, very hot, very trendy. Hopefully, you are tuning in. Please follow me. Please go to my YouTube page. Just ask Carla. Subscribe there as well. Help me out. But until next time, it's been amazing. Be blessed.